Okay, so today I'm going to show you guys how to make some different versions of these pop art digital images. So this is the one I'll be doing in the video. So first we need to create a new document in Photoshop. I would like you to name it your last name _ pop art. Make sure you're set to inches and then you want the width and the height to be 16. Okay, then hit create. So now we need to find an image. I like to use unsplash.com. It's a great way to get some free high-res photos that are available for use. So when you're looking through your photos, keep in mind that we are going to make the image square. So if you have something that's long and rectangular, you might not be able to crop it the way that you're envisioning for this project. So I like this one. I'm going to just hit copy, right click and do copy. And then I'm just going to do Control V in Photoshop to paste it in. I'm now going to crop it. So using the marquee tool, I'm changing the style to fixed ratio. That's going to make it a square. Okay, and so now I can just draw out my square, move it around, and kind of crop the area I want. The nice thing about a high-res photo like this is that even when I zoom in, you can see it's still got quite a lot of detail. Okay, so once you have that, you're actually going to use this to delete everything else. Now there's multiple ways to do this. This is just the way that I'm showing. I'm going to go over to select inverse. So now everything except that is selected and I just hit delete. So now I have my workable image. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. So now we need to set up our workspace a little bit more. So go to View if your rulers are not already on. Mine are, as you can see. You would just hit Rulers, and I like to make sure they're in inches, which you do by right-clicking. So now I'm just going to click and drag down to the 8-inch mark on both the horizontal and vertical. Don't worry that the photo is not lined up. We're going to take care of that next. Now, depending how you cropped, you might have an issue like this. Okay, there's multiple ways to deal with erasing this. You can do whichever makes the most sense. Sometimes it's the magic wand. Sometimes it's easier to actually just select with the marquee. Again, I have to go back to normal to make a rectangle and then hit delete. Okay, you want to make sure it's nice and cleaned up. So now I'm going to move my image into one of my 4 quadrants. Go to Transform, Scale, which you find under the Edit tab. Okay, now it looks a little pixelated. That's normal. Once you press Enter, it will go ahead and show detail again. That's just something Photoshop does. So now I don't need to do this, but I'm just showing you in the video. If you got this from another area and it says you can't edit, you need to go to Layer, Rasterize, and then Rasterize Layer before you can do any changes. So now I'm going to Image, Adjustments, and Posterize. This is what's going to give the effect like this is more screen printed or painted. I wouldn't go higher than like a level 8 because it starts to look just too much like a photograph again. But you can mess around and find your sweet spot until you are happy with the outcome. Keep in mind the colors are going to change, but you're looking more at the amount of detail and the texture that's coming up. I also decided to mess around with the contrast. This is optional. Of course, you can adjust your image however you see fit. And you always want to make sure preview is selected, right, so that you can see what's happening. So now I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, and Hue and Saturation. I always like to move this so it's close to what I'm doing. And you can see I'm on the master setting right now. So it's changing the hue and saturation for the entire picture overall. You can also go in and do it by color, which I'm now showing. I usually like to start with the master to get a rough idea and then mess around a little bit more from there. If you don't like what you did, you can always just press 0 to go back. When you're happy, press OK. So now we are going to just duplicate this. First, we want to make sure we label it. So top left. Now we're going to right click and hit duplicate layer. And now we're working on the top right, so we'll just rename. So now I am just going to drag this over since I have 2 layers of the same thing. And we will now repeat that same process. So we'll go to Image, Adjustments, Hue and Saturation. And as long as it's a different color composition than the first one, it will give that pop art feel, right? The idea is to have multiples of the same image with just variation in the color. So you kind of repeat the same process. Keep in mind that you're now working from your copied image, so you might select a specific color and it might not respond the way you're expecting it to because it's now working off of the duplicate image and not the original. So you might notice that some of the slide dials aren't really responding. They are doing something, it's just that you might not have a lot of that specific hue in your image at that point, and so that's why it looks like it's not doing much. If you can't really tell, you can always play around with the lightness and the saturation, even if it's not how you're going to leave it in the end, just so you can kind of see what's happening. And then from here, it's pretty much smooth sailing, right? We're doing the same thing again, so we'll duplicate. But now we're going to the bottom left, so we're just going to label that one. And again, we will just drag it into place. It's great that we have the markers from the rulers to help us with this. We know everything is sitting right where it should. And once again, we're going to go into adjustments and repeat this same process once more. Again, there's many other ways that you can manipulate this. This is an introductory video, so I am showing you a pretty straightforward way. You know, there is an infinite number of ways that you can edit, customize each image. You can even play around with, you know, the specific texture a little bit more. You can play around with the levels. There are just so many options, but for a beginner, you know, this is just a nice clear-cut way to kind of dive into this and really get some nice differentiation in the images. Now, obviously, I'm not spending a crazy amount of time on this just because it's a demo and the idea is for you to spend time on it. So, you know, don't feel like you have to do it all in one shot. You can take your time, you can mess around with it. You can also mess around with the composition. I'm kind of doing this in one shot where I'm just saying this is the top right, this is the bottom right, you know. You could potentially just label them as 1, 2, 3, 4, and then drag them around and change the composition as you see fit. So for example, let's say I wanted that red cactus to be in one of the lower quadrants, right? I can always play around with that later. All right, and now we are moving on to our final one. So same kind of deal here. We're going to say bottom right. Drag our duplicate over. And once again, we're going to manipulate this under Image, Adjustments, and Hue and Saturation. Now I always want to make sure that, again, I have preview selected and that my color selection or dials are not in the way of the quadrant that I'm working with, because I want to make sure I can see, you know, what is happening as I am touching these. Okay, and then once you're satisfied with how that looks, you're pretty much done. If you want, you could always use the line tool to actually create a visible line between the four images. I didn't feel like I needed or wanted to do that on this, but of course that's always an option. There's endless ways, like I said, to customize this. This is just a starting point. So we're going to finish this one up. Okay, so that's pretty much it. So from this point, we would just export. I like to export as a PDF, so we're going to go to File, Export, Export As. Sometimes this screen takes a minute to load, just give it time. You want to make sure you have the format set to JPEG. And then for our purposes, we just hit export. You'll save that to your computer. I had done another demo, so I'm just going to adjust the name. Make sure that you save it somewhere that you can actually find it. That's very important. And then you're all set.